Wannabes, you guys, welcome back to Unshakable with April Chapman. Today, we've got to dig in deep and we've got to revisit the story that doesn't seem to ever want to end. What am I talking about? We're talking about the Nolan Wells story down in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. I've done considerable amount of coverage on it, but obviously I've not covered it enough. One of my subscribers asked me to cover what is currently now circulating in controversy as it relates to his parents, Christine, and based on Ben Crump's enunciation, I can't tell if it's Elma or Elmo. I don't know what his name is, but the Wells as a couple. What's so disheartening about this story is new information is now coming out, and it's asserting that Nolan Wells' parents have issued subpoenas to the friends of Nolan Wells. So the first thing we need to do is take a look at some clips. Let's see what the local news outlet is reporting, and then we're going to come back and engage with it.
New at 9, parents of Nolan Wells' friends and local officials were reportedly sent notices of intent informing them to expect lawsuits in connection with the investigation surrounding Wells' death. According to our media partner, the Sun Herald, those letters were sent by a Richland law firm, Carroll Bufkin PLLC, who is working alongside civil rights attorney Ben Crump. It is unclear at this time who exactly received these letters, but we do know they instruct recipients to immediately preserve all evidence in their possession in its original form and directs those recipients to suspend any automatic deletion or overwrite functions that could destroy evidence.
So that was the news story surrounding this case. And the first thing I'd like to say about this, first of all, I want to give a shout out to Brandon Tatum. If you guys are unaware, Brandon Tatum has been one of the foremost people on this case in terms of just independent. I wouldn't necessarily call him a journalist, but in terms of being a content creator and conservative influencer, he has done an interview series of Nolan Wells' friends. And I thought it was interesting. I didn't even get a chance to cover that because that content was coming out so fast. But from the friends' vantage point, they spoke warmly of Nolan and asserted that Nolan was one of their best friends, if not the best friend in the friend group. Well, what I thought was interesting about that is that Nolan Wells' parents are now asserting that they don't know you like that, you being the friend. And there was a portion of the interview where I think Trayson advised that he couldn't understand why Christine Wells would all of a sudden act brand new when his car has been parked at her home numerous times. He has picked Nolan Wells up from school. They hung out at prom. Like, they've been friends since freshman year high school. I've got a lot to say about this whole situation, and I'm going to explain what I believe is at work and what's at play here. But I first want to just lead and give you guys the facts. So let's take a look at this interview.
With the autopsy results inconclusive, rumors continue to swirl around the death of Nolan Wells, the 18-year-old who was found dead after boating with his friends on 4th of July weekend. Wells' parents and their attorney, Ben Crump, spoke with Chris Cuomo earlier tonight, and Nolan's mother said there's only one question she wants answered. Watch.
At the end of the day, we would want what any parent would want, which is answers to find out what happened.
They also listened to part of an interview that Brandon Tatum did with one of Nolan's friends, and here's how Nolan's stepfather responded to it.
You heard that kid Trace in the interview say that he was friends with Nolan and that you guys would know him. Do you know him? Do you recognize him?
No, I don't. Just because you park your vehicle in someone's yard doesn't mean that they have to know you.
Okay, I thought that was interesting. The question was, the friend is saying that I am one of Nolan Wells' friends. And listen, unlike Brandon Tatum, the gloves are off for me. I no longer believe that these people are just being manipulated and that they mean well. These people have been coached by Ben Crump. Listen to what the father said. Just because you park your car somewhere doesn't mean we know you. We know that y'all may not know him, but the answer to the question broadly is it your testimony that Trayston and Nolan Wells were not friends. And he asks, Chris Cuomo asks, do you recognize him? Do you know him? I believe they were answering the latter question and not the former. They recognized this young man, but what they're saying is we do not have intimate knowledge of who he is, but they're not answering the question as to whether Nolan had intimate knowledge and was friends with him. The mother is saying, we only want to know one thing. We want to know the same thing that any other parent would want to know. We want answers. We agree, Miss Wells, that Wansley, you want answers. The problem is the state's investigation is still ongoing. You have circumvented the state's investigation. You've hired a known race-baiting civil rights agitator and disruptor to represent your interests. There's been a whole slew of alternate narratives coming from your side and your side only, but it makes it difficult for people who want to operate in the light and want the truth for us to believe that you want answers when no, you've been curating a narrative as opposed to waiting for answers. So now, yes, you guys want answers. You're acting brand new as if you do not know of this young man, or rather, let's be more precise, you're saying that you personally don't know him. I believe that Ben Crump has coached them to act brand new and act like they are unaware of Nolan's interactions or intimate friend group as a way to muddy the waters or to cast a shadow of doubt. The whole goal here is to damage their credibility. Now I want you guys to take a look at this clip.
New at 9, parents of Nolan Wells' friends and local officials were reportedly sent notices of intent informing them to expect lawsuits in connection with the investigation surrounding Wells' death. According to our media partner, the Sun Herald, those letters were sent by a Richland law firm, Carroll Bufkin PLLC, who is working alongside civil rights attorney Ben Crump. It is unclear at this time who exactly received these letters, but we do know they instruct recipients to immediately preserve all evidence in their possession in its original form and directs those recipients to suspend any automatic deletion or overwrite functions that could destroy evidence.
All right. I wanted to show you guys a series of those clips because together it is going to shape the framework around what I want to say. Let me explain to you and just break it all down really simple what I think all of this is about. We've already seen a very robust GoFundMe where money was raised not in a genuine interest to support and just love on a grieving family, but rather it was racially motivated to raise this money because Ben Crump placed a shroud of suspicion around this case based on its geographical location alone. The fact that it's in Mississippi, and then he instigated more uncertainty surrounding this story by highlighting that we have one black boy and all of these white people. It's in Mississippi and we want answers and say his name. He did the usual race baiting tactics from his playbook in order to muddy the waters and cast a huge cloud of suspicion on the basis of ethnicity and racism, when most of us are like, this is a maritime situation that involves a young man mysteriously dying, and we don't have evidence to support that there's been foul play. Here's what I believe is at work. I used to work in the insurance industry, and I'm quite familiar with liability and the myriad of ways that families, particularly families of influence and affluence, the things that they do and have to do and put in place in order to protect themselves. So this is Ocean Springs, Mississippi. It doesn't strike me as the hood. And typically when you are dealing with communities like this of affluence and it's a boating community, a boat is an asset. Like really broke people don't own a boat. I mean, maybe a rowboat, but this is a boating community. In the boating community, you have individuals. If you are able to own a boat, you've got discretionary income. So you own a home and then you own a boat. You probably own vehicles and a car. If you have membership to a country club or a boating community type situation that requires dues and fees, and in one of the distress calls, we heard that they have a membership to this towing service, which costs money. I am telling you what I believe is at work. Ben Crump has done his research. He's looking at the families and the friends and the people in this community that he is trying to make involved in this case, and he sees dollar signs. I just told you I have experience in the insurance community. People who own boats, they typically own homes. If you own a home and you own a boat, you also have an umbrella policy. An umbrella policy is an extra layer of liability that goes on top of your car insurance, your house insurance, your boat insurance, any sort of liability, any policy that has a liability component. So, for example, let's say you have a homeowners policy that has 500,000 of personal liability, or $1 million of personal liability, and then you have an auto policy that's got liability. Then you've got a boat policy that's got liability. The umbrella policy, maybe 1 million or 2 million or $5 million, is on top of that. It covers all of your assets. So if in the event you are ever sued, many of these policies have a provision that if you are sued, it will vigorously defend you up to the cost for you to retain legal counsel. Why do I bring all of this up? I bring all of this up to say that Ben Crump has not waited for the state's investigation to be complete. He has no idea of the findings of the preliminary autopsy. But here's what he's banking on. You have to understand, in the biggity community, the pro wokety woke, blackety black cultural Marxists, the process is the punishment. Divide, disrupt, agitate. The thing we're gonna put you through is supposed to drag you through so much hell and personal turmoil and professional and personal reputational harm. You're supposed to sustain all of that to where when it gets to the point where you've just been worn out, you just want it to go away. So here is my theory. I thought it was interesting that they have received a notice or a subpoena of some sort with an intent to sue. My question is, sue for what? Has anyone been charged criminally for this? No. This is not a pursuit for criminal action, but rather this is probably civil, which means there's a money component attached to this. Ben Crump is hoping that he can pierce the veil of liability and possibly get access to a settlement or some sort of judgment from the umbrella policy that may or may not be in place. Here's what I'm saying. As a former insurance professional, if I was covering the risk management services of any of these families in this community, you have a boat, you've got young adults in your family and they have access to the boat. You've got a boat policy. I'm selling you an umbrella because you never know. I believe that Ben Crump is trying to wage a lawsuit, maybe on the basis of neglect, wrongful death. He wants them to assume liability for what happened with Nolan Wells, not because here's what y'all have to understand with a liability policy. You don't have to have done anything wrong. The policy is in place to protect you, even just in the event you are accused of having done something wrong. So what Ben Crump is banking on, he's looking for assets. He wants to drain these people in their community dry. He wants to know, you got a home? How much is the home worth? What is the homeowner's policy on that? The boat policy, the umbrella policy on top of that, if they own a business. Like, he wants to get access to all of the financial resources that are available in hopes for a settlement to make this go away. Now, can I prove any of this? Do I have evidence of this? Has Ben Crump called me on the phone and said, April, yes, you figured it out. That's my plan. No, these are my opinions. based on me being an insurance professional and looking at how Ben Crump has been moving and navigating through this whole situation, coaching them, telling them what to say. How are you issuing a subpoena and wanting to sue people, and you don't have any evidence of any wrongdoing, and the investigation is still opening? It's still ongoing. So one or two things are at work. You want to muddy the waters, and you want to intentionally cause reputational harm, and then at the same time do all of this grandstanding with the subpoena, and we're going to sue you in hopes that you can get an idea of what's going on with the umbrella policy and the boat policy. You want to say, well, since Nolan was hanging out with y'all, something happened, he didn't come, and you were negligent, so therefore we want to sue you personally, civilly, and you're going to have to pay up. This is getting very, very ugly. I think at this point, Ben Crump sees that he wasn't able to get the response that he was looking for with the racial angle. So now the gloves are off, the mask is off, and he's like, look, we're just going to go for the gusto. These people got money. These rich white folks down in the Gulf, yeah, they're going to pay for this black boy's death. It doesn't matter if they didn't have anything to do with this black boy's death. Somebody is going to pay this family, because that is how Ben Crump gets paid. What happens if after the state's investigation, it is determined that either Nolan drowned, or we can definitely rule out foul play, but there were drugs in his system. Who gave him the drugs? Where did he get the drugs from? They want to implicate some sort of civil negligence and pin it on one of these kids' families. And whoever has the most money to vigorously defend themselves against this are going to be the ones who are going to win. Now, let me make a statement directly offering my opinion and critique of Christine Wells and Nolan's stepdaddy, Elma, whatever his name is. I will say that Brandon Tatum was very gracious and kind and said that, I don't want to assume these people's motives. I just think they're being manipulated. Yeah, I'm not that naive. The moment you attach yourself to someone like Ben Crump, knowing his history, that means you are of the same ilk. You are a chronic victim who cannot be trusted. You have money on your mind, and you are chasing the money because he's either made promises to you, or you've seen him, even if wrongfully so, you've seen him in the past be able to get some, he'll do something strange for some change. And you've seen him get settlements for other families in the past, despite the cloud of confusion and misrepresentation that may have surrounded that particular family's story. I do not believe, here's two things can be true. Do they want to know what happened to their son? Yes, of course they do. But they want a payout. Someone has to pay in the form of money, because money answers all things, right? They want someone to pay, and they are looking and digging as deep as they can to find someone has to have been negligent, and there's money somewhere in this community to give us the money that we want, and they are unwilling to stop at anything. They don't care of. This reminds me of the Duke lacrosse team. They don't care if these young men's lives are destroyed. They don't care if these young men are like, look, we didn't have nothing to do with this. It doesn't matter. They have to blame someone, and they need a scapegoat. This is just my opinion. For them to talking about don't delete anything now, as if the local police investigation didn't already include, hey, we need to verify your alibi. Can we just take a look at this? Like, us on this side of the investigation, we don't know what the local authorities have or have not done. So for you to 3 weeks later tell them you can't delete anything off your phone, am I under arrest? Am I being detained? To me, I think that's a smokescreen, and that is just, they had to throw that out there in order to, it's a fear-mongering tactic. They want these young men to question their reality. They want them to, the process is the punishment. I don't believe that this family, yes, I believe they are interested in wanting to know what happened, but at the same time, they are opportunistic. The fact that they're still attached to Ben Crump. This is a grift and a paper chase, and it has completely shattered any belief or confidence that I ever had that these people are operating in good faith with good intention. So at the end of the day, I think these young men's families, it is wise for them to lawyer up, but they're going to be digging and want to see what type of liability policies are in place, from an umbrella to the boat to the house, any sort of businesses, they are looking for liability limits because they want to tap into that, because that is where the real money is. But I'm curious to know, what do you guys think? Do you think it even makes sense for them to issue a subpoena and say, we're suing you now? Now we're interested in pursuing criminal charges, because if you did something, we want you held accountable. Nah, civil. We want money. These are civil lawsuit subpoenas, if I am not mistaken. And then what are your thoughts about the father saying, or carefully answering the question about whether he knows or has he seen Trayston before? I'm curious to know what you guys think. I will do my best to stay on top of this story more. But until next time, you guys, stand firm, stay bold, and above all else, stay unshakable. Grace and peace.